Chapter 28. It's so interesting. My mother obviously arrived, but she didn't tell me directly. She neither came to see me nor asked me to meet her. I learned the news about my mother's arrival in Shanghai from Sue. Ruth, in fact, Mingmei misses you very much. She is also very lonely. Sue's tone was a little erratic, and his expression became dazed. I watched him silently. The man in front of me, he has loved her for many years. What kind of affectionateness can support him and wait quietly to see so many times she comes and goes from one man to another, but it is never him. However, he still love her, even if he love desperately, he is willing, even if he place his heart on her only daughter. In fact, he still love her. You've always loved her, haven't you? After all these years, I can finally calmly face Sue and say these words calmly. Sue was almost startled, his brows furrowed, and the expression on his face became sad. No, who told you that? Who would dare to tell you that, Ruth? His voice lost his usual tone. Gentle and serene, with a hint of uncontrollable desolation in it. It's you. Didn't you say it yourself? I looked at Sue with almost pity, and my tone couldn't help softening. Sue looked at me almost begging, shook his head slightly to signal me to stop talking. He slowly approached and stretched out his hands. I saw the corners of his mouth trembling. I'm sorry, Sue, maybe I should have told you earlier. In fact, I said gently, with a mature attitude. But before I was finished speaking, Sue had already pulled me into his arms and bowed his head to kiss me. This is really beyond my expectations. The only time we had a skin-to-skin relationship was that Valentine's Day at the Sauce House in Paris 2 years ago, and it started sadly and ended in a hurry. The arrival of Sue this time is of course the intention to stay with me, but because of my hesitation and alienation. I have always been cautious in my words and deeds, maintaining a rational scale. If I hadn't touched Sue's sore spot, he probably wouldn't have lost his temper so much. I turned my face hard. Sue fiercely wrapped his arms around me, bent down and kissed my temples, and muttered, "Don't avoid me anymore, okay? Why don't you forgive me? As long as you forgive me, I am willing to die for you. Stop, Sue. Wake up, okay? Let go." I finally broke free from Sue's restraint, and we both looked at each other breathlessly. Sue's face was full of confusion and loss. He opened his mouth without making a sound, and took another step forward. I pushed Sue away and ran out of the house. It was in the evening. Standing at the intersection, I was a little frustrated and didn't know where to go. I walked all the way without realizing it, and unknowingly I came to the gate of the Emerald Forest. I was surprised to find that the place was closed, and a few young people at the gate were dismantling the signboard. Under their strange eyes, I walked around the sign and entered the store directly. The inside was untouched, except that there were no customers and no lights were turned on, making it very dim. There was no one in the store. Just when I wanted to go upstairs to Jiayun's room to find her, Jiayun had already come down the stairs. Min was behind her, with a suitcase in his hand. When they turned around the store and saw me, they both stopped. "Jiayun, where are you going?" I asked blankly. "Xiaobai, why are you here?" "I'm going back to New York in a few days, and the inventory has already been taken out, so I'll move to the hotel first. I thought of calling you from the hotel, but I didn't expect you to come. What are you doing here?" "Hey, Xiaobai. Your face is so ugly." Jiayun still hugged me lovingly. "You're leaving too." I suddenly felt lost, and thought of Min. Would Min also go together? I turned my face to look at Min. His face turned slightly to the side. He seemed to be very preoccupied, and I couldn't see his expression clearly in the dim light. The empathetic Jiayun saw the clue, and she comforted me with a smile. "Don't worry, Min said he won't leave, because there are people here who Min cares about." I sent Jiayun to the hotel with Min and chatted with her for a while before leaving together. I feel very sad. My friends have dispersed one by one, and now there is only Min left by my side, but how long can I keep him? Suddenly I remembered an advertising slogan, is it a second or a light year? It was already dark, the street lights were on, the long shadows of people stretched into the middle of the road, then gradually shortened and then elongated. I raised my chin and laughed silently. Sue said goodbye again. I suddenly found out that I really grew up. After so many twists and turns, I finally learned how to face it after escaping for so long. If it were my past self, faced with such a ridiculous situation, I would have chosen to walk away a long time ago. What kind of family, friendship, and love, when you can't bear it, just let go and bury your head in the sand, so you can't see or hear it. Close your heart safely and tightly. It's as easy to discard the past as a broken line draft. In my young contradictory mind, which has first tasted the vicissitudes of life, I am used to hiding and suppressing abandonment of emotions. Many indifferent people have probably known since childhood that sometimes emotional abundance is a kind of hidden injury. In order to avoid injury, we can only learn to refuse to accept and give. How helpless, but what a practical life experience. Today, I have finally begun to mature, at least I have the courage to stay and face the reality. And Sue, he was the one who always chose to avoid dodging. Usually, I used to wait quietly and regret it in vain. I couldn't help being pushed to the tip of the waves and choosing to flee in a panic. I will never take the initiative to attack, and I can't even examine my heart frankly. At this moment, I can see Sue clearly. I sympathize with him, my mother, and myself so much. What on earth is that makes the three of us embarrass ourselves? A few days later, Jiayin took a flight back to New York. Min and I went to the airport to see her off. Life is full of gatherings and separations. Where is there any eternity? People all yearn for a lifetime, hoping to get together and never be separated, but the moon is still cloudy and sunny, not to mention the world's weather are all different. If we can't stay with each other, even if we are separated by thousands of miles, as long as we are safe and happy with each other, it is enough. When we came out of the airport, Min and I sat in the car relatively silently. Although the sadness of parting was the same, we had our own thoughts. After a long while, we raised our heads and opened our mouths at the same time, calling out each other's names. For such a tacit understanding, we stopped talking and smiled. Xiaobai, I just want to tell you, don't embarrass yourself too much, be honest with yourself, don't pay too much attention to unexpected factors, and listen to your heart. Min said gently, and there was still a familiar smile hanging on his face. I stared at him and gently repeated those words in my heart, be honest with yourself and listen to your heart. Thank you, Min, I think I know what to do. Min, I will listen to my heart. Maybe I'm more selfish, but I will be more responsible. I decided to go to Sue, and my intuition told me that he was still there. Maybe with Mom? Min insisted on giving me a ride. I no longer refused. We went to the hotel where Sue stayed. When we asked at the front desk, Sue was not there, and it seemed that he hadn't come back for a few days. Where will he go? We went all over the high-end hotels in the city and finally found my mother's residence, but it is said that she happened to go out and didn't leave anything. Looking around at a loss, I suddenly remembered the mansion purchased by Sue. It was halfway through renovation. I visited it once and saw the splendid design inside, which had not yet been formed, but it was full of splendor, which made me feel sad. What's the use? No matter how gorgeous the handwriting is, it can't hold back the fleeting years like water. Drive straight to the eastern suburbs, gradually far away from the city. The air is getting clearer and clearer. Although it was early spring, the grass was green, the evergreen broad-leaved branches were stretched, and clusters of jasmine flowers were blooming by the lake. The branches of the sparse cherry blossom forest are like thin clouds. At dusk, Flocks of birds flew past, reflecting the orange glow of the sky, like a fine black silhouette. Walking along the long corridor to the building purchased by Sue, I really saw a black lotus, which my mother likes. It is relatively simple and reserved. There were two entourages sitting in the car waiting for orders. They saw us, getting out of the car to greet us. They recognized me and bowed respectfully. I motioned them to step back and turned to look at Min. "I'll come out soon, wait for me." Min nodded slightly and gave me an encouraging smile. I stopped, took a deep breath, and walked in. This is a 3-story house. Walk in, it is brightly lit. Destroying the previous decoration, Sue personally designed the Rose Palace. The main tone adopts a white color, which faintly shows a trace of shell color. Sue said that this color is called the Rose of Heaven. Still in the construction stage, the furniture ordered by Sue from Europe has not arrived yet. Some of the original furniture here has been discarded, and some of them have not yet been dealt with in the empty hall room. Traces of roses can be seen everywhere: fireplaces, roof edges, windowsill lattice, basin tile mirrors, and even roof floors are everywhere. Fragmented, meaningful, exquisite and elegant. The faint silver brush strokes, if there is nothing in common, wind and dust are everywhere. I let out a long sigh in my heart. Why bother, Sue? Standing in the atrium that leads directly up and down, I looked around. The building was very quiet, and there seemed to be no one there. But I know that Mom is here and Sue is here too. I walked up the stairs, bypassing some building materials piled up on the ground, the sofa and coffee table that were scattered randomly. The stairs have not yet been completed. The escalators on the first and second floors have been installed. The light-colored wood has not been painted yet. The smooth and round spindle-shaped fence is finely engraved with lingering rose branches. The escalator on the third floor has also been installed, but it is obviously relatively loose and has not been fully embedded and fixed. There are still some tools and chaotic wood edges scattered on the ground. There was no one on the second floor, but a windbreaker was placed randomly on the remaining long couch in one of the rooms. I recognized Sue's windbreaker. The rose map was spread out and placed under the jacket. Many broken cigarettes were discarded on the floor around the couch, all of which were not lit, but were twisted, broken and thrown on the ground, like a string of scattered question marks and exclamation marks. Walking up the stairs to the third floor, I stopped at the corner of the stairs. I heard my mother's voice. Mom's laughter. Like silver bells and ripples, they ripple gently. It will take a long time to calm down. The voice is curling, weak, but stubborn, expanding and expanding. Youngshin, you're always like this. 25 years ago, it's the same. 25 years later, it's still the same. There's nothing new. Mom said sarcastically, and the last sentence was as cold as ice. Ming-Mei, I know you'll never forgive me, but I really want to make amends. Will you give me a chance? Sue humbly pleaded. Forgive. Forgive you can let Elan live? Forgive, can you let everything come back? I forgive you? Then who will forgive me? I stood at the corner, feeling an inexplicable unease in my heart. Although they didn't tell me all this time, I also vaguely felt that there must be a past between my mother and Sue, but I didn't intend to ask what it was, and I knew that they would never let me know. It must have been an unforgettable past. Elan is my father. I haven't seen him since I was born. I know that my mother loved him very much. But my mother keeps saying that the person she loved doesn't love her. Whether this person refers to my father is unknown. My mother never told me about my father. I asked about it several times when I was young. Every time I mentioned it, my mother would immediately put away her friendly expression and put on a stern and desolate attitude. Then walked away, not saying a word or looking at me. If I cry, my mother will ask me to shut up with a snarky tone that is colder than ice and sharper than a thin blade. Crying is the most incompetent performance. She said coldly, her eyes blank and her face bleak. Even though I was still young at that time, I was too frightened by the cold and decisive atmosphere to make a sound. However, Mom loved Dad so much. I have seen the group photo of them. My father is handsome and calm, standing with my mother under the lush flowers and trees, beautiful like silhouettes of gods in the world. Later, no matter where my mother went, she always took this photo with her. No matter who she married, the ring on her hand was never taken off and changed. It was always the one that my father put on for her. When I was a little older, the night before my mother was going to get married, maybe she remembered the tender and beautiful moments in the past, she will took the initiative to tell me about my father unexpectedly. Nan, in fact, your father is a very perfect person. Do you know why you are called Yiheu? Mom asked gently. I shook my head. My surname is Yi, your father's surname is He. Yiheu is the angel God gave us too, and we will do our best to give you happiness. I stared at my mother. She raised her face slightly. A full moon was outside the window. A faint light sprinkled in and fell on her. Mother seemed to glow with a pearl-like luster. Her eyes were closed and her face was calm, just like a fairy who will be secluded in the wind at any time. That was the only time my mother talked to me about my father. I also quietly asked my grandma, but my grandma didn't say anything, just told me that my father was a very, very good man, and he loved my mother very much. His death was completely accidental. The plane crashed, and none of the crew members and hundreds of passengers survived. Mingmei has a hard life, and so does Nan Nan. So you have to be considerate of your mother, understand? In fact, your mother has never forgotten your father in her heart. Grandma said kindly and sadly. I nodded obediently and never mentioned my father again. Don't touch the wound that has already formed, let time help it heal slowly. As for Sue, he only appeared in my life when I was 6 years old. Judging from the attitude of him and my mother, they should be old acquaintances, and Sue has always been fascinated by my mother, but why does my mother prefer to meet other men again and again? Without considering Sue, it is impossible to know. Mingmei, it's all my fault, there's nothing wrong with you, you don't need to forgive at all. Sue's voice sounded so painful. Yes, I'm not wrong. It's not my fault that I lost my head and drank to bed with you. It's not my fault that the first thing Helan saw when he came back from France and entered the house was that I was lying with you. I'm not wrong, Helan has only been around for nearly a year and still can't let go. As soon as I gave birth to my child, he took the initiative to ask to go on a business trip and embark on a road of no return. Haha. But tell me, is there anything wrong with me? My mother's voice became more and more intense. Sharp, but still smiling so sweetly that those who listened shuddered. Don't say it, Mingmei, please don't say it anymore. We were all drunk at the time and we couldn't help it. I know I used to be cowardly to blame you, but when I can finally make my own decisions, you have already married Elan. I feel like I'm about to go crazy. I love you so much, Mingmei either. Shut up. Su Yongshan, are you worthy of mentioning the word love? You can leave me without hesitation for the sake of the family business. I already had your child, you know. If it wasn't for Helan, I would probably be dead. It's a pity that Jiang Shui didn't drown me, but made me lose my child. Helan said he didn't mind that he was willing to be the child's father, but the child was still not saved. How desperate I am, Yongshan, do you know? Her voice changed from anger to sadness, and began to whimper. I really fell in love with Helan later, not to repay my kindness, really, Yongshan, I really love him. Mom said in a whisper, so when you come back to me later, I don't hate you anymore. I really don't mind the past. I want to live a good life with him when Helan comes back from study. However, how can I be so confused that I promise to drink with you and talk for the last time before saying goodbye? Haha, as soon as I say goodbye, I went to bed with you, and it was the night before Helan came back. It was you. Su Yongshan. This is all a trap you set. How do you want me to forgive you? I was cold all over. I knew that Sue and her mother had a deep relationship for a long time, but I didn't expect it to be like this. I want to shout, but I couldn't shout. I want to move, but my hands and feet are sore. I can only stand here, as if I has turned into a porch pillar. Okay, Ming Mei, I will no longer ask for your forgiveness. Just don't torture yourself like this, okay? Yes, yes, it's all my fault. I am indeed a sinner, and I don't deserve any forgiveness. Sue's voice were dumb and desperate. We are all sinners, Yongshan, we both are. You can't escape, and I can't escape. It's because of me that Elan ended up in such a miserable end. In fact, it's me who should be punished. It's me. Mom laughed, almost breathless. I wanted to bury this matter in my heart forever, but I can't deceive you anymore. I can't let you blame yourself like this for a lifetime. Helan didn't actually ask for a business trip to avoid you. He came to see me. I told him that I came to China, but I didn't plan to see you. I just wanted to ask about your situation. If it was good, I would be at ease. But Elan insisted on coming to see me. He said he wanted to have a good talk with me. It's all my fault. If I'm not so cowardly and afraid to see you, Helan doesn't have to come to me. He won't have an accident at all. Ming Mei, now you understand that I'm a sinner. I really should go to hell. By the end, Sue's voice had turned into an uncontrollable cry and roar. Heh. It suddenly became quiet, except for Sue's rapid and heavy breathing and crying. My limbs gradually regained consciousness, and finally I could move again. I slowly turned the corner and went up to the third floor. In front is a corridor that is not too long, one side is the room, one side is the escalator, the middle is a semicircular arc-shaped protruding viewing platform, and the bottom is the atrium after the entrance on the ground floor. There were no people in the corridor or the observation deck. The sound came from a room on one side. It wasn't too loud, but it was clear enough. I was thinking about whether to go over, but there was a voice over there. Yongshan, how dare you ask me to marry Nan Nan to you? Sometimes I really wonder if you are a devil and want to oppose me. Mom said with a sigh, her breath weak like a strand of gossamer. I dare not, I don't even dare to beg for your forgiveness. I just want Ruth to make her own decision. No matter what her decision is, I will follow it. I just think I should tell you this in person. I don't want you to hear the news from someone else. I mean, if Ruth agrees. Sue gradually calmed down and said softly and firmly. Perhaps it would be wiser for me to leave quietly, I thought, but there was still a slight hesitation. As if I had never been here today, heard nothing, didn't know anything, maybe that's better. In the future, as long as I refuse Sue, I can really walk out of his shadow and start my own love life. Mom and Sue have said everything today, so that's fine. Although the facts are ugly, the ashes of time can't repair the wound. Simply breaking the wrongly connected broken bone again will get a better connection and healing. A long time later, I still felt in a trance at the thought until dusk. I don't know if it was a mistake that I didn't leave in time. End of chapter 28.